Now, as he began a visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Pope Francis denounced the poison of greed for mineral resources and denounced economic colonialism in Africa. Now, locals have, of course, been touched by the Pope's outspoken criticism of their suffering. However, they say the fighting and violence has not stopped as a result of his visit to Kinshasa. The Pope is currently visiting conflict-ridden South Sudan. Joining me now to further unpack this is Africa analyst Jean Bwasa. Jean, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us on the Weekend Report this morning. Now, the Pope, the last time he was in Africa was, of course, 2015, visiting Kenya and Uganda. But the last time he was in the DRC was some 40-odd years ago. And so, naturally, there's a curiosity about this visit. Why is there this interest in the DRC?
Good morning, Tokozo. Good morning to your viewers. And I must say, the interest in the DRC, and I would start this interview by saying, if the Pope is truly and really inspired by God, the creator of all universe men and women, it is about time that we restitute what is overly due to the Congo. Congo not with C, but Congo with K as a letter, because Congo, in many institutions in the Congo, we refer to God as Akongo, in the tribe of the Bangombe. And with that saying, Congo has got the minerals that are actually being used in the entire world. We speak about our phones, we speak about the rocket that goes on the moon, we speak about the cars that are being to become electrical or that are already electrical. All taps onto Congo, which is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. And it is very important that there is restorative justice, peace, and development in the Congo for the human being, because that's the greatest tragedy that has ever happened in our human society. And him being the leadership and a religious leadership, it is very important that he brings the moral grounds and ethical leadership that the world actually needs, because we are living in an era where there is a vacuum of leadership, ethical leadership, I mean.
I want to talk about the Pope's sort of diplomacy during his visit to the DRC, talking about, or at least denouncing what he termed, this poison of greed when it comes to the Congo's mineral resources, essentially criticizing the West and perhaps even Eastern influences that have tried to exploit these natural riches in the DRC. What do you make of his comments? Pope Francis has always been open about his fondness, his love for Africa. He's consistently said that he wants to make a peace mission to the continent. For a number of years, in fact, he's been talking about this, and he's finally managed to do it. And in doing so, has not minced his words when it comes to Western influence on African countries and what he calls their exploitation.
We acknowledge the Pope as Islam's all these commercial and I would say neo-colonialism, neoliberalism that has been in fact implemented by the former colonizers that continue to plunder the Congo and Africa. And I really appreciate that he said ends of Congo, ends of Africa. But there's a layer that he needed to go further. That is the condemnation of those multinationals as well as the leaders that are actually causing all these atrocities, and request and make a call and a pledge that justice must be served. An international tribunal should be put in place, and him as a religious and moral leader should have been able to do that in the Congo. And also, I really appreciate the fact that he did not only condemn all those that are the multinationals and the commercial and that are plundering the Congo, but he condemned as well the local leadership, the African leadership that are the Congolese people at this very instance that are clueless and that are also ill-treating and dehumanizing the Congolese people. And this, for me, is key and critical. But as I said, we need to go further and ask that those people step down and let those that have got humanity at heart be able to lead the citizens of this continent, the citizens of the Congo and of South Sudan, where he is, so that we bring peace for all the citizens, for all humans, and we start living with harmony so that people are able to have their dignity restored.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps that is a fair statement, Jean, but I think we can both agree that the papacy's diplomacy is a unique one. It's not, of course, fostered in the same way as sovereign countries and sovereign states. It is very much based in religion and spiritual beliefs and doctrines, and so perhaps the approach is to be, as expected, to be slightly different. But I want to talk about the fact that demographically the DRC is majority Catholics. I think about 10% or so follow the religion of Islam. So that speaks to a lot of influence that the Pope would have when it comes to the population of the DRC. It's also heading into elections later on this year. Do you think his visit would have had enough of an effect on the population as it starts mulling over, the leadership issues that it has going into those elections?
Well, indeed, I truly say that it will have an effect into the Democratic Republic of the Congo, that is mainly a Catholic and Christian country. We've got 110 million inhabitants. Having said that, I'm a bit cautious because there has been no census for the past since 1977. So what is at stake here is the fact that elections that are going to occur next year will normally yield the Christian and the Catholic people to rise and to be able to, as the people that were at the stadium were singing, that it is time for Tshisekedi to step down. He must know that his mandate, his term is over. And this is really important because the people of the Congo have started to rise and to acknowledge that enough is enough, and this is time for them to be able to live peacefully, notably in the eastern side where more than 450,000 women have been raped. And I'm touching on this because when we speak about gender-based violence, it is really in the eastern side that this gender-based violence has been tackling due to the fact that people have created that as a weapon of war. And indeed, the Pope should have also made a call on that so that all the guns in Africa as well as in the Congo must stop. And the people that are invading the Congo, the terrorists of the M23 that are backed by other nations, should also stop, and we must have a ceasefire and a tribunal. So the elections at the end of the year should normally pave the way so that the Congolese people are able to choose the true leaders that are going to be catalysts of peace, harmony, and development. Indeed.
Well, of course, yesterday the Pope made his way to South Sudan, landing in the capital, Juba. That is another conflict-ridden country on the African continent, fractious leadership issues within that country as well. Talk to us about the Pope's choice in going to South Sudan and what his message of peace is likely to do for a country that's so conflict-ridden.
Well, it's not the only country that is conflict-ridden in Africa. I think many countries in Africa are ridden with conflict, either internal, political, or so on and so forth. But what is important for me is a trip to one of the youngest nations in Africa, is the fact that it could yield the tension between all these rivalries, but also try to pave a way so that people can get together. The democracy we are living in Africa is not a democracy that we as Africans aspire to. It has been imposed onto us. And it is important now, since we have embraced it, that we find a new ways as Africans to resolve of our issues. And I've always, in my capacity, asked for a Palava Tree model so that the South Sudanese people are able to come onto the table and think how possibly they could live together and avoid the tribal conflict, the ethnic conflict, and also the religious conflict, because we must know there are a bit of Muslim in that country as well. So this is where human race, and I'm talking about human race, must actually come together and say the time kenako, as we said, the time has arrived where as human we need to find a way to bring peace, dignity, and harmony between every citizen, regardless of our status, regardless of how we are, and think about the numbers of people that are actually today disabled due to the mines, the wars, the guns, and family that are dislocated, and the displacement and hunger that is prevailing in South Sudan and in many other countries.
Yeah, no, indeed, the devastation is pretty much unparalleled at this point, Jean. You know, at the end of the Pope's visit, once it wraps up, we're likely to invite analysts like you back onto the program to give us a sense of whether or not you believe the visit was a success. But I'd like to ask that question now. You know, what the Pope has said so far and what we're anticipating he's likely to say in South Sudan, what would make this particular visit to the continent after so many years a success, a resounding success for the papacy?
Well, I think, as I said, as a premise to this interview, if the Pope is truly and really inspired by God, and the purpose of his trip has been inspired by God, and God dwelling within each and every individual, each and every leaders, the success will be peace, and peace can yield anything, love for one another, because the problem that we are suffering as humans today is a philophobia. We do not love ourselves. The minute we will start loving ourselves as individuals, then we will transfer that love to other humans. And when we transfer the love to other humans, then we will be successful in every endeavor that we're going to tackle and to undertake, so that we can have justice, distribution of wealth, because that's what is at stake at the moment. It's the greed that is prevailing from other entities to Africans. And I would say Christianity erased our African culture in the 15th century. If we can truly restore as well that Africans are able to think and to live in accordance to their religion, in accordance to their culture, in accordance to their politics and ideology, I think that should be also a success for his trip. That, for instance, you mentioned earlier on that the last time the Pope was Johannes Paul II, who arrived in the Congo, then Zaire, in 1985. He was welcomed through the songs and in the way the African people of the Congo and Zaire then used to welcome and worship God through Christianity. They embrace and we merge everything together. And I think that's what is key for me. The success of the trip for the Pope would be peace, harmony, and dignity and respect of one another, learning by one another as human beings.
All right. Well, Jean, thank you so much for coming onto our program and sharing your insights with us there. That's Africa analyst Jean Bwasa.